All right, guys, welcome back to Downtown Rams. As always, I'm your host, Alexis Kraft, joined here with my co-host, Jake Ellenbogen. And guys, we are coming to you after a Rams win in Los Angeles against the Las Vegas Raiders, 17-16. And honestly, one of the most intense Rams games that we've seen in a while. For sure, Jake, the most intense one we've seen this season. Not only just because of the game itself, but because of the storyline. I mean, you have Baker Mayfield come to the team, and in less than 48 hours, he's playing quarterback for the Los Angeles Rams. And not only is he playing quarterback for us, Jake, he is making some impressive throws. You know, he started off really hot, then things got a little shaky, but understandably, because he's only been with the team for less than 48 hours. And then, Jake, when it came down to the wire in the fourth quarter, he rallied, he led the Rams to near a comeback, and then he finished it off with, I think, like 9 seconds left on the clock with a touchdown to Van Jefferson. Couldn't ask for better television. And dare I say, Jake, actually, I know this is a fact. That was the best Thursday night football game we've seen all season. NFL fans have kind of been giving Prime and the NFL a hard time because Thursday night football has just been atrocious the entire season. No matter who's played, good teams, bad teams, it's just been putrid. So it was nice to finally get a good game on Thursday night football. It was especially nice to have it be a Rams win, speaking for us and I'm sure most Rams fans. So Jake, let's get into it. We're going to kind of talk about specific things that the Rams did well, maybe a few things that didn't go well, things they could still improve on. But I'm just going to start, Jake, Baker Mayfield. What does his performance last night mean for the Los Angeles Rams?
I mean, man, 230 yards, 22 of 35, a touchdown, didn't turn the ball over, got hit quite a bit. I think something like that can really help you get back on track. Just the way you could tell the team fed off him. I thought the defensive performance was great. You can say what you will about this offense, and let's be honest here, you know, Josh McDaniels' offense is really hit or miss. They've had some games where, I mean, they lost. Let's not forget, they lost to Jeff Saturday the same week that he became the head coach. So, like, this is that team, but this is also the team that went, you know, and won 3 straight. This is a team that had really gotten their offense going. Josh Jacobs is leading the league in rushing. They're the only offense in the league that has a rusher and, of course, a receiver over 1,000 yards. And Derek Carr had been playing some good football, but, you know, in steps this Rams defense. I mean, Alexis, I don't know why we're so surprised. I mean, there was no Aaron Donald. Of course, the defense is going to show out and only hold him to 16. Oh, wait, that's normally not what happens, right? Normally when Aaron Donald's not playing, you know, you're going without a lot of the guys on the defense and offensive side of the ball. You don't see games like this. I mean, just to see this team fighting as hard as they were at 3-9, you know, they were, you know, basically 2-5 at home. They had to have this win. There was just something about this. You remember, obviously, when we were talking about on the podcast, I just said this game feels weird. Now, you almost nailed the actual, like, score predictions, so I got to give props to you. I had 31-27, and yeah, that did not happen. But I'll take this because I felt like this was incredibly exciting. And I felt like throughout the game, Alexis, this was a team that, you know, I thought the Rams should have won this game. They shouldn't have been in a 16-3 hole. I mean, you could look at, you know, the officiating call on the bubble screen to Atwell that would have put them in the red zone, gets called back because of the hook by Havenstein, very ticky-tack, but Cam Akers fumbling. Those 2 moments in the game, you know, hurt their chances at putting up points. So, and then not to mention the awful call on Coleman Shelton, where a guy pushes him and then another guy pushes him and then he pushes the guy back and the ref only sees his push. So then they get the 15-yard penalty, which takes them out of field goal range. And of course, Matt Gay, who had the 55-yarder and said it would have been good from 61, you know, earlier in the game, he of course shanks the 61-yarder, but no, a great win for the Rams. They needed this. And going back to your question, I just think this is what the Rams need. You know, it's having somebody like Baker Mayfield come in here. It really shows you that, hey, like, winning isn't that hard. I mean, it's hard, but like he just came off the bus essentially and was just like, yeah, I got this, guys. I think they can build off this. And to be honest with you, like coming out of this game, I don't care how reactionary it is. I think it's more so I don't really care for their schedule. I think the Rams honestly outplayed Seattle last game. I think the Rams can win out. I think they play a Green Bay team that, is pretty lackluster. Obviously it's going to be tough to win on the road like that, but they get a lot of time in between then and now. That's going to be on Monday Night Football. Then they have on Christmas Day, just like everybody asked for, Baker Mayfield versus Russell Wilson. I think Denver looks like one of the worst teams in the league, especially on the offensive side of the ball. The Chargers, I think the Rams, honestly, I think the Chargers are benefiting from the fact that they play an easier schedule and they play in the AFC. So I honestly think the Rams are better than the Chargers. They don't scare me. And then it really comes down to the finale in Seattle. At that point, the Rams could be 7-9, trying to go 8-9. And I'll just say this before I pivot back over to you. This season, if they go 8-9, is almost identical to the season where the Patriots won the Super Bowl against the Rams. And then the next year, Tom Brady's next year, he struggled. They had all sorts of injuries. They got hot at the end of the year, which led to their dynasty later on. But they missed the playoffs, and people forget about that. This is almost eerily similar. If the Rams win the next 4 games, it's almost exactly the same thing of how the Patriots finished their season.
So there's a chance.
Yeah. There's a chance. We've kind of, thrown out the window and said like, yeah, it's not going to happen. And I don't know why I'm talking about it more like it's going to happen when you and I both picked the Rams to win this game. So I don't know why like the sudden change, but I do have the information in front of me, Alexis, instead of seeing, yeah, this person has to lose, this team has to lose. No. I got it all here. Very simple. Ready? Number 1, win every game. The Rams have to win every single game, Alexis. I mean, there's no way they're making the playoffs at 7-10. So don't come at me and be like, if they lose against Green Bay, Jake, is there? No, they're eliminated. So they have to win out. Green Bay, Denver, Chargers, Seattle. They're not playing the Niners. They're not playing the Chiefs. They're not playing the Bills. Those are winnable games. I'm not saying they're guaranteed wins, but they're winnable games, especially Baker gets slow in the offense. I won't rule it out. Number 2, Washington or the Giants. This is where it gets tricky. Washington or the Giants have to lose out. So they both don't have to lose out, which is good, but you have to admit one of them is going to make the playoffs. And right now, if you're looking at it, they both had the tie, which by the way, the tie kept the Rams still in it. That's the funny thing. But the tie kept the Rams in it. They need Washington or the Giants to lose out. One of them, they play each other again. So theoretically, if both of them lost every game to that point, you would want whoever wins that game to just win out, and you'd want whoever loses that game to lose out. So right now, I kind of lean towards the Giants. I feel like you want the Giants to win out. You want Washington to lose out. Then Seattle has to lose out, which is easier said than done because, Seattle right here, the Rams absolutely blew it when they lost to Seattle on the final drive. But so much so, if they won that game, they could be in a serious position here where if they play against Seattle, week 18, that might be for something. Right now, they need a lot to go their way. So when you look at the Seattle Seahawks, you look at what they have left on the schedule, it's not impossible. So hear me out when I say this. Seattle has to play the Panthers, okay? The Panthers, that should be an easy win. But if they do not beat Carolina, Alexis, this is where things get interesting, okay? They barely beat the Rams. They lost to the Raiders. They lost to the Buccaneers. And now they have the 49ers, who they need all the help they can get because they're trying to win that division. So you'd be rooting. There's a scenario here where you're rooting for the 49ers on Thursday Night Football. I'm sorry, Rams fans. The next game, they played the Chiefs in Kansas City, Alexis. So then guess what? The team I cover on my channel, the Jets, they play the Jets. The Jets are a great road team. They're a better road team than a home team. They'd be in Seattle. All of a sudden, that game's huge. The Jets are trying to get to the playoffs. They're sitting there. They're both 7-5. And then the finale in Seattle, the Rams, and the Seahawks. So then the fourth thing, and this is the final thing, Green Bay, who the Rams play next week, Detroit, New Orleans, and Atlanta cannot win more than 8 games. So if all of that somehow miraculously happens, I'm not saying it's going to, I'm not holding out hope it's going to, the Packers are 5-8, so they also have a pretty tough road ahead. They have to play the Rams. They have to play the Dolphins. They have to play the Vikings and the Lions. If they don't make it, then you go to the Lions. What do the Lions have to do? They can't get to 8 wins. They can only win 2 games the rest of the year, just like the Packers. They have the Jets. They have the Vikings. They have the Panthers, the Bears, and the Packers. If I'm looking at anybody that's honestly more likely, it's the Lions, if I'm being honest. I think the Lions are more likely than the Packers, because the Bears game, that could be huge. And then the Panthers, and then you just have to win one of Jets, Vikings, and Packers. And so that means Rams fans, even though if you want to root for the Lions, you can't this week if you want to have any chance of making the playoffs. So then we look back at the Saints, right? So the Saints here with their schedule, the Rams don't have that tiebreaker. So they need the Saints to not tie the Rams, right? So the Saints schedule here that I'm looking at, they have the Falcons. So in that game, the Saints are at 4-9. The Falcons are at 5-8. You might almost want the Saints to win just so the Falcons also have a 9th loss, but the Saints play the Browns, now a more healthier Browns team in Cleveland. They play the Eagles and they play the Panthers. So the Saints are still in it, but they cannot win 8 games. Then you look at the Falcons, and the Falcons here, the Rams beat them, so they would have the tiebreaker, but here's where it gets kind of crazy, Alexis. The Rams cannot have 8 wins and have other teams have 8 wins because it nullifies the head-to-head tiebreaker. So if multiple teams have 8 wins, it's going to go to wins in common games. So right now, the Falcons would play the Saints, the Ravens, the Cardinals, and the Buccaneers. And there you have it. It's a lot. I understand it's a lot, but it is, yes, to answer your question, there is a chance. And it's, even though it's like a 0.1% chance right now, it feels more realistic after the way they won this game. And, maybe we'll see what can happen. But stranger things have happened in this league. There was one scenario years ago, like I think 2006, Kansas City needed 4 teams to lose in the last week of the season. All 4 teams lost and they made the playoffs, all 4. So that's pretty improbable. They need a lot of teams to lose. We'll see what happens.
I think, yeah, there's a chance.
Yeah.
Guys, there is a chance.
Right? Just like let it fall into place.
Yeah, I would. Yeah, that's what I was saying. We're still going to continue to cover the Rams the way that we were planning on doing before yesterday. For everyone wondering, I mean, there is a chance. I think, we all know what the 99% chance is, though.
Yeah.
So there's a lot to talk about. There's a lot to cover. And, it's one of those situations where if it was just up to the Rams to get themselves to the playoffs, that'd be a different story. But unfortunately, it's kind of like we also need a lot of other teams to lose or win or whatever. But you never know. It's not over till it's over. The only 2 teams, guys, out of 32 teams in the NFL, the only 2 teams that are eliminated officially from playoff contention are the Texans and the Bears. So everybody else, there's a chance. It's fair game. But Jake, yeah, I mean, listen, watching this offense, kind of back to the Baker Mayfield thing, right? Because he's the big story from last night. It's interesting because, we said on the show, the last episode that we recorded when we were talking about Baker Mayfield. So we recorded like 2 days ago because we had to do recap preview episode. We play on Thursday night. Tonight that we're recording is Friday. Baker Mayfield's, we kind of talked a little bit about why the Rams might be bringing him in, right? Because you've got a season that's effectively over. So a lot of people are like, why are they doing this? This doesn't make any sense. Your season's over. Just play with what you got and move on. And you and I were saying, well, it makes sense because of whatever reason, the Rams don't seem to be too high on their backup quarterbacks. There's a reason right there, looking at Baker Mayfield to be the backup quarterback of the future. Second reason, they want to evaluate their young receivers. They want to see what those receivers play like with a better arm, with a more mobile quarterback, with somebody who's a big playmaker. And 3, the Matthew Stafford retirement question, right? There is that kind of lingering, haunting feeling that everybody's having. Like, is that going to happen? Is it not? What's going to happen if it does? So in reality, there was a lot of reasons to bring in Baker Mayfield. It might have seemed to a lot of people that there weren't any, but there were at least 3 that I just named right there. And Jake, my interpretation of the game last night was that was the first game that I've seen in a long time, for sure this season. But, and again, it's crazy coming off a Super Bowl season to say this, but it's the first game that I've seen the Rams play in a long time where you needed multiple people to step up to win. You couldn't just rely on one person. It was a team effort. And people might disagree with that statement, but here's my thought process behind that. We don't win last night's game without Baker Mayfield, of course, right? That's the big story. But guys like Ben Skoranek, Tutu Atwell, Van Jefferson, even Cam Akers, we do not win, especially with those three receivers that I just named. I think, in my opinion, Ben Skoranek and Van Jefferson really stepped up. We don't win that game without those guys. I mean, that's just the truth. So it wasn't just the Baker Mayfield show. That was the story, right? That's what everybody's seeing online. That's what people who aren't Rams fans are talking about. That's everybody looks at the last minute touchdown, looks at the big throws. They see that. But in my mind, it was more than an equal effort by the offense. And I kind of want to get into that a little bit, Jake, because I couldn't help but think when we saw that Ben Skoranek catch for the first down where he jumped over, the two receivers' backs and made that catch. That is exactly how you are supposed to use Ben Skoranek. And in that moment, I was thinking, this is what Jake and I were talking about in Downtown Rams since they drafted Ben Skoranek. Is Ben Skoranek, if you watched him in college, Northwestern Notre Dame is where I watched him. He's the red zone threat. He's the guy that you give one-on-one jump balls to. That is what he does. And that was the first time in a long time that we've actually seen him used that way. And it was beautiful. And he did it with ease. I mean, it was a hard catch, but, he was built for it and he made the catch. So you've got that. You look at Van Jefferson, who hasn't played most of the season. This is his, third game back? Fourth game back. And, he comes in, he makes a lot of big catches, seemed to have instant chemistry with Baker. Obviously, the big catch is the touchdown catch at the end. And then Tutu Atwell. All right, this is a guy who, got a lot of flack from Rams fans, myself included. A lot of people didn't understand, why the Rams took him as high as they did. I'm still in that boat, if I'm being honest. A lot of people are confused about Tutu Atwell. Some of those things I think are valid. Some of them I don't. But I'll say this. Last night, he might not have gotten the game-winning touchdown. He might not have had, the big, huge play. But he had a lot of catches for first downs when it mattered. He got open. He made the catch, right? So you've got all of these guys. And again, Baker Mayfield was incredible. He's a legend. We all now love him. I totally get it. But guys, this was a group effort, and that's what's really cool to see as a fan. We don't win without those receivers. All three of them absolutely stepped up and got it done. And Jake, the first thing I want to talk about, because we'll talk about Baker more as the season goes on, and I don't want to beat a dead horse about Baker Mayfield, so we'll talk about him a little later in this episode too. But Jake, I want to talk about the running backs. I want to talk about the running back situation. I know I'm pivoting from Baker to the running backs is doing a 180. But here's the thing. Cam Akers, I thought, looked good last night. Okay. A lot of people, I think, misinterpret our skepticism about Cam Akers as us not liking him, which is not the case. We do like Cam Akers. But I don't think that Cam Akers, and again, you see the fumble, you see more of those runs that are right into the backs of offensive linemen, the vision problems. You see those things, but then you see the good runs. And my thing is, it's the consistency issue. Okay. And when you have a consistency issue like that, Sean was giving Cam Akers, I think, Jake, you might have it up. I don't have it in front of me at the moment. X amount of carries. Okay. In the first half, I'm pretty sure at the end of the first half, Cam Akers had 17 carries and Kyron Williams had
he only had 12, believe it or not.
Something like that.
But
in the first half?
No, all together. Cam only ran the ball 12 times.
What am I?
Last week he ran it 17.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
But the disparity there was 12-1, right? Or whatever number it was when one in the first half.
Yeah, Kyron this week, by the way, ran 6.3 yards per carry to Cam Akers 3.5. I got to say this, okay? I got to say it. Not liking somebody doesn't mean disliking. I don't like Cam Akers. I don't dislike him. But I can't sit here and lie and say I like him. Because I've seen running backs like Cam Akers before. I've seen, we saw Steven Jackson's consistency. I'm sorry, if you don't have consistency, you're not a starting running back in this league. 3.5 yards per carry. He has 3.3 on the year. I see all the flack Henderson gets, but Henderson finished his career with the Rams 4-yard per carry average, at the end of his time this year. And then I'm watching Kyron Williams. He comes in 2 straight carries. And it's one of those things where if the Rams don't win this game, I am beating this over the head with people because I do think it's a problem. Like icing out Kyron Williams, Alexis, you could be open about it. It's okay. He's your guy. Say it because I'm going to if you don't. 3 carries, 19 yards, 6.3 average. There's just no reason why he wasn't in the game more. He wasn't getting more carries. Malcolm Brown, they trusted more at the end of the game. And, you could say what you will about Cam Akers getting a touchdown at the goal line. Yeah, that's great. I think Kyron could have done that. I think he could have done it twice last week. My biggest issue with Cam Akers, once again, remains to be the fact, he had a nice 9-yard run. I give him credit for it on Twitter, and people are like, oh my God, Jake's giving Cam Akers credit. Yeah, I'm gonna give a guy credit, but then it's the next run, and he runs right into his offensive line, just like you're saying. It comes a point. It's not that like an NFL running back, I don't think is capable of having a good run here and there, but it's just like, what have you done for me in between those runs? And that's the thing. It's just the hell of a not much of anything. 12 carries for 42 yards is not good. This is a defense that gives up a lot on the ground, and Kyron was going to do that. 3 carries for 19 yards, and you run it twice, and then you take him out, and he doesn't run again. That's my thing, okay? I like Sean McVay, and he deserves a lot of credit for playing Baker Mayfield, having the guts to do that, having the balls to actually put Baker Mayfield out there. That's insanity. He deserves credit. He deserves credit for finally letting Tutu Atwell play. He deserves credit for letting Ben Skoranek and building him up this year, not listening to the fan base, not everybody in the fan base, but the fans that wanted him cut. He deserves credit. He deserves credit. He's the youngest coach in the league. He's the youngest coach to ever win a Super Bowl. But there's still kinks that bother me. And the mismanagement of the run game is a reason why they were down 16-3. And Cam Akers is a sole reason why they were down 16-3 because he fumbled right when they were driving. It was one of the best drives of the game, and he fumbles there. That's the second all year. And so it's frustrating to watch Kyron, who's clearly the better running back, right? There's not a consistency issue with Kyron. He gets the ball and he goes. Cam, he has a nice run. Then he doesn't do what he did the last run and tries to cut it twice, and he can't do that, and then gets, negative yards. What did you say last podcast, Alexis? You said Kyron Williams doesn't get negative yards. He has positive yards only. That is who I want on the field. I don't want a guy who's going to run for 9 and then run backwards and lose a yard, and now 3rd and 2, he's going to get stuffed. I want a guy who's going to continue with the 9, even the 2-yard runs. That's what Henderson did. That's exactly what Kyron Williams did. So in an effort of keeping this still a real podcast and not just oohing and ahhing over the fact that they're 4-9, because that's like me, giving like the Yankees credit for signing Aaron Judge. You were supposed to do that. You were supposed to be 4-9 at the very least this season with this talent. I'm not trying to be a Debbie Downer, but I'm sitting here and I'm watching this movie all over again with Kyron Williams. They're literally icing him out of the offense just like they did with Henderson. And I can't just sit here and pretend that it's okay. I mean, the reason why, and I love this game, it was incredibly fun, but a big reason why this was the way it was because Cam Akers' fumble. I mean, that's just not acceptable. That's a fumble that ruined a great drive and hurt their momentum. And you can't have that. You're starting a guy who has 1 day of practice. You have a defense that's holding the Raiders to 137 yards through the air. You have a defense that's holding Josh Jacobs, who's the best running back this year in the NFL, to 3.7 yards per carry. That's barely better than Cam Akers in this game. And you ruined that. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? You put a lot of pressure on them by trotting him out there. So, of course, Sean McVay at the end of the game, who does he have to go to? Not his second overall pick, or his second round pick, the highest pick in the last 5 years for the Rams. Not Darrell Henderson, who's cut. Not his 5th round pick in, Kyron Williams, who they trade up to get. Nope. Guess who's in at running back when the game matters the most? Malcolm Brown. Malcolm Brown, who was just on the practice squad.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. And listen, I know that I have to be careful because anytime I say anything about Kyron Williams now, it's like, oh well, Alexis is biased because that was her, favorite player for so long. Okay, here's the reality though. The stats back me up on this. The eye test back me up on this. When Kyron Williams is in the game, he's only making positive yards. He's breaking free. He's doing everything right. I'm not saying he's not going to have a bad run. Okay, he has had a couple runs that didn't go his way. He ran into a defender. He didn't see a defender, got tackled. Whatever. He's a rookie running back. He needs to make these mistakes. Okay, but they're not happening very often, and they're still not happening as much as Cam Akers. And guys, when you watch Kyron, just compare their runs. I know it's hard because he's only run the ball, a finite amount of times compared to Cam, but he's doing everything that you want your running back to do. And it's frustrating because, he is a rookie running back. And I feel like he does need to be getting these reps, build up his confidence, build up the trust with everybody else with Kyron, him and the quarterback, him and the offensive line, everybody else. He's in there. He's making a lot of good blocks. He had one last night was just absolutely beautiful. I texted you, Jake, about it. Kyron is the best pass pro running back we have by far.
Did you see that block? You're like, yeah, I love pass pro. I'm always watching it on that. I'm noticing that right away. I'm also noticing when it doesn't go the way it's supposed to go.
Yeah, I mean, not all of our running backs do that. Kyron's pretty much the only one that does. I'll say that. And so, it is a little frustrating, but I carry that sentiment with all of our rookies. I understood here's the thing about last night with the run game. I figured we weren't going to run the ball much, not just because that's kind of sadly what we typically do, but also because I get that it was the Baker Mayfield show. We all knew going into this game, they were going to use Baker as much as they could. It was all about that. I understood that. I hope that going forward, we do start to utilize the run game more. But last night, while it was frustrating, I kind of died to self and I was like, this is going to be a frustrating game for the run game. I knew that going in. But here's the thing with the other rookies, guys like Quentin Lake, guys like Daniel Hardy, guys like Russ Yeast. I want to see more of these guys. This is the thing with the season. I know that Jake and I were just like, oh, well, there's a chance. Well, here's the reality. That's like a 1% chance. Okay. Regardless if there was a chance for us to make the playoffs or not, I think we're at the point in the season now where we need to start seeing young guys. You can't just put them on the bench. Here, I'll take that back. If we were like 12-1, or something, right? It would be different. What we're doing is working, whatever. But what we're doing is not working, crow, guys.
What Ready we've for me been to eat some crow? Taylor Rapp played his best game of the year. He was very, very good. He
did.
I give that guy a lot of crap. He was great.
Well, we'll talk about when we talk about the defense. We'll definitely talk about Taylor Rapp because we owe him some kudos for this game, 100%. But I still, regardless, would have liked to have seen Quentin Lake or Russ Yeast in there, guys, again, it's kind of like, why not? Like, that was the story, right? Like, you put in Baker Mayfield with less than 48 hours on a team and you're just kind of saying, F it, right? Like, you're going for it. You're taking the risk. So if you're going to do that, you might as well also play your rookies, right? I mean, if your back's against the wall. So that was a little bit disappointing because I think there's definitely a lot of guys that could shine and get opportunity that aren't, and that, whether it's Kyron or Daniel or Quentin or Russ or Jacoby Durant, although he did play.
He did. And
a lot more.
Maybe I'm wrong, but I didn't see Darion Kendrick at all.
I don't think he was in there often, if he was in there.
I don't either. I saw Troy Hill. He had a good game. He had a very good game. He had a really nice stop on second down when they had to have that they had. I still can't. Can we talk about the defense? Literally needed that stop so bad. They give up that run after a nice second down stop. Then they give up on third down, on second down and 9. They give up a 8-yard run, right, or 9-yard run by Josh Jacobs, and they're in 3rd and 1. Did you think the defense was going to be able to hold them? Be honest.
I was impressed. Okay, honestly, it was the Raiders.
Yes, but Josh Jacobs. I thought they would least.
Oh no, no. I mean, that not on that play. No. I don't know. I think it's tough. It's tough to not keep bringing up the offense, because the offense was like the big story last night for us, right? Which is crazy because it's just like, I think it's also after going the entire season of just like watching just like the most putrid offense we've seen in a while, right? Just absolutely brutal. Not just since Matthew Stafford's been hurt, guys. I mean, let's be real. Like, it's been the whole entire season from week one. This was the most exciting offensive game that we've had. I thought like, I really think, and I know that, I keep using this statement, when your back is against the wall, but I really believe that when your back is against the wall, I'll say it for the last time, you kind of do your best work because you have nothing to lose, right? And you saw that. The Rams were the epitome of that statement last night. I mean, they really went for it. Was it perfect? No, it wasn't going to be perfect regardless. Yes, there are things, I think that they could have done better, but they went for it. And you got guys like Ben Skoranek, Van Jefferson, Tutu Atwell, making some catches. Jake, I want to talk about the Tyler Higbee thing.
Well, this is the last. Then I want to ask you about the offensive line.
Going to a bad note. Oh, okay. Okay, so before we talk about the offensive line, then Tyler Higbee, what's the deal? Because it's not looking good, and the catches that he does make, it's like he's about to drop the ball. I saw the one catch, I forget which quarter, is in the first or second quarter, I think. He made the catch and he turned out towards the sideline, and you could see his hands like fumbling the ball in the air, and we're sitting there like, what is with Tyler Higbee not being able to catch balls this season? Like, is it mental at this point? Like, is it?
I don't know if it's mental. I think more of it. I think he's banged up. I think he's really just trying to get through this season. Not every veteran, because you and I are thinking, if I'm a veteran, I've already won a Super Bowl, this season's over, I'm probably not putting my body on the line, right? Like, I'm probably just like, all right, let the kids play, I'm good. But like, that's not the way these NFL players are, I'm sure some of them are, but Higbee doesn't appear to be that. I've seen him get up really gingerly, and I've been saying for weeks, this guy looks banged up. So it's really hard to evaluate him, because early on in the year, he looked really good. We know he's had to go to he's had to go under the hood multiple times, in the blue tent. I mean, during games, like, I don't know. I think there's something more there, and I think we'll probably find out at the end of the year. Like, hey, he's been playing with like a torn labrum in his shoulder, or like he has a banged up knee or something. I mean, Van Jefferson did all the second half of last year. So it's not unheard of, and it's not unheard of to kind of hide it, because here's the thing, like, a player won't get fined for hiding an injury, right? A team will get fined for hiding a player's injury that the player's already reported. So the Rams are not like obligated to have to report an injury of Tyler Higbee if he's not reporting it himself. And I don't think he wants to. I mean, they might notice maybe there's a limp, but that's just like, that's just the thing about the NFL. Like, if you're not like ever limping, if you're not ever kind of gingerly getting up, I mean, that's like, that's just the nature of the beast. These guys are playing, they have bruises, bumps and bruises all over the place, right? So it seems like it's one of those things where I think he's more banged up than probably letting them know, and that's the case. And I won't pretend like I know that's what it is. That's what I believe it is, or what I think it is. But it could be something different. With the offensive line, though, Alexis, I want to ask you, what did you think? Because I thought they played well in times, but I think the thing that really allowed Baker to thrive was the fact that if anybody was going to struggle, it could not be the interior offensive line. And that is what happened. The interior offensive line did not give up pressure and did not give up a sack outside of Matt Skura. Brian Allen and Coleman Shelton were perfect last night, and they needed to be, because when Baker got all of the pressure from the outside, our guy Max Crosby, Max XX, is just insane. One of the best pass rushers in football. And he's going one-on-one. I will say this. He's going one-on-one with Rob Havenstein. Where was the chip? Where was the help? There was no help. Not easy. So you have him coming from this side, and on the other side, I thought Nsekhe did a really nice job against Chandler Jones. Only gave up 2 pressures. Havenstein gave up 5 and a sack. Nsekhe gave up a sack, and then Matt Skura gave up 2 pressures and a sack. But Brian Allen and Coleman Shelton allowed Baker to step up. And when you have, pressure coming off the edge, and you have the feel for the game, and you're able to step up in the pocket, you can make those throws that Baker made. And I mean, this guy was a first overall pick for a reason. Like, it's not like his tools went out the window. This guy still has it. This guy's won big games. I mean, even he admitted he's never won a game like this. So, but I think you got to give your hats off to Allen and Shelton. And I thought, in Secchi and even Havenstein, I understand 5 pressures looks bad. I understand there were holds they probably could have called on him that weren't called. And I understand he gave up a sack, but these guys up front, Chandler Jones and Max Crosby, that's a tall task. And this is a team, the Raiders, they've won 3 straight going into this game. They're still in the playoff race and they need this win. And I just feel like what they were able to do and give Baker enough time to be able to step up and make plays was big. Now, he was still sacked 4 times. He still had some pressure, but you're going to have that when, this is the first time in the entire season you've had the same offensive line 2 weeks in a row.
Yeah, that was my thoughts as well. I thought that this was like one of the best games we've seen our offensive line have this season, if not the best. And again, it wasn't like great, but they allowed Baker enough time on a lot of those plays to make the pass, to move around, which allowed wide receivers to get open. So I thought they did a good job. Yeah, I think the tackles struggled. I think, Havenstein really struggled. But, anyone going up against Max Crosby is going to struggle. You're going to have to commit penalties on him and just hope that it doesn't get called because there's just no way to do it cleanly. I mean, he's just so insane, as you and I know. But yeah, I mean, so I figured that was going to give them trouble. But, and listen, I'm also not unrealistic. I understand that this was not like a great Raiders defense aside from Max. Okay, guys, like I know that everyone on Twitter is like, oh, of course, they're doing good. It's the Raiders. I get that. But I think at the same time, like we have to take little wins where we can find them. And this is the second game where we had a consistent offensive line. As lame as that might be for a win, I'm going to take it. I mean, that's just the reality of it. So I was happy to see it. I am happy that, if nothing weird happens, that's going to be the same offensive line next week. And we'll be at a record, guys, 3 weeks in a row with the same offensive line. What a treat for us, the way the season's going. But Jake, last thing I want to talk about the offense before we go to the defense, because obviously, just a lot is being said, about the wide receivers. Now you've had the emergence of Tutu Atwell, right? You have Ben Skoranek, who people are calling it an emergence. I guess you could call it that. I feel like he's just doing what he's been doing and people are finally giving him credit. Maybe like he's doing it more on a massive scale. Like I admit he hasn't been making catches like he did last night.
Him all and year. Baker had like a connection that they just, and that's another thing to come into a team and just, it takes so long for these quarterbacks and wide receivers to get on the same page. And it looked like he'd been throwing to Skoranek for like years. They just had, like, Skoranek knew where the ball was coming. It just, I don't know. There's something about last night. Like, I don't know if that's just Baker being Baker, but they seemed on the same page.
It begs the question, right? Because Ben Skoranek can do that. That's the type of receiver that you and I know that he is. Okay. He can do that all day. Allen Robinson. We're looking at this receiving core. Is the Rams maybe finally seeing what Ben Skoranek can do? Is it crazy to say that might hurt Allen Robinson?
I don't think he's
and
back
his chance to stay on
regardless. This team. I think that felt like a place where if that doesn't work out, they're going to trade him. I'm just being honest. I think that they're going to end up trading him. And then at that point, like I said, one of the 3 former Rams, whether it be OBJ, Robert Woods, Brandon Cooks, I believe one of them is going to be a Rams receiver next year. But I would make the argument that they don't need to go crazy at the wide receiver spot because they have guys like Skoranek who stepped up. They have guys like Tutu Atwell who, again, imagine if they just were throwing to him the whole year. He had 5 catches for 50 yards. He was the highest targeted, guy on the team with 9. Skoranek had 8 targets, 7 catches, 89 yards. By the way, fun fact, Skoranek out outperformed Devontae Adams. And then you had Van Jefferson come down with the game-winning touchdown, who, I mean, keep in mind, he's played, his fourth game this year. Barely was up to speed when he first got back. So I just feel like there are some weapons here where I'm not necessarily looking and worried about the wide receivers. I don't think it's the sexiest wide receiver room if it's Cooper Kupp, Tutu Atwell, Ben Skoranek, and Van Jefferson. But I don't really care. I mean, I think that's a good receiver room. I think it's good enough. And I would be more worried about going after and getting another tight end to play with Higbee, because clearly they just, goes back. It's all full circle. We were just talking about it.
And that's where I start to get a little delusional because, not to bring up the Michael Mayer thing, but, I do kind of like look, because, you and I look at draft prospects, right? And you kind of start to wonder, what's going to happen. I like you said, I like Kupp, Jefferson, Skoranek, and Atwell. It's not probably the most glamorous wide receiver room in the NFL. I think it's solid. I think trading Allen Robinson for draft capital or, maybe a player or whatever it might be makes sense. But I do think the tight end position, when you look at Higbee, for whatever reason, the Rams don't trust Bryson Hopkins. I'm not saying it's not warranted. They just don't seem to want to utilize him a lot. And at this point, I think that that's pretty telling. Jacob Harris,
okay.
It doesn't seem like
I think he banged up his shoulder pretty bad.
Yeah, I mean, you look at that tight end position, though, you start to think, is that going to be a position the Rams could target? But the Allen Robinson question, yeah, I just know a lot of people are talking about it, and I know it's something you and I have talked about as well. And again, I do think that as you start to see all these receivers kind of show what they can do, you start to wonder, all that money you're spending on Allen Robinson, can you get rid of it? Can you trade him? Whatever. But Jake, let's talk about the defense. Okay, here's the thing. The Raiders have Josh Jacobs and Devontae Adams. Those are two of the best offensive players in the league. I know Devontae's not like having his
he is.
quote unquote
He's
typical
got, like,
season,
yards.
right? But Jake,
yeah,
is he? Well, amazing. Okay, but he has, but like you look at him with like the Raiders and like him with Aaron Rodgers.
I mean, probably not as many
and what
touchdowns,
he historically does. And the Raiders are 5-7. But what I was gonna say, is that he then goes in 2 minutes into the game and makes that like one-handed like grab. I was just trying to kind of imitate it, but it's kind of like I need someone to pretend to be Jalen Ramsey. He comes in and he makes that one-handed grab like 2 minutes in the game. And I tweeted, I was like, God, I'm sick. Like it took him 2 minutes to just absolutely make a fool out of Jalen Ramsey. And him and Jalen Ramsey had some battles throughout the game. I will give it to Devontae Adams. I think Devontae Adams looked better than Jalen Ramsey, but I think that, the Rams prevented Devontae Adams from having the kind of game that he could have had, Jake. You look at who Devontae Adams is. I've always said that I think he's pound for pound, I think he's the most talented wide receiver in the league. Everyone hates me because of the Cooper Kupp thing, right? But I'm saying in terms of I'm not talking about production, in terms of what you can do. I just think that Devontae Adams is like he's absolutely a freak athlete. And when he's at his prime, I think it's hard to top him being considered the most talented wide receiver in the league. I'm not saying the most productive or, whatever, anything like that. Going up against Jalen Ramsey, who a lot of people think is the best corner in the league. We all knew that was going to be a good matchup. I do think Devontae Adams won that matchup, but I don't care because we won the game. And honestly, Jake, I thought that our defense did a pretty good job containing the Raiders. And you talk about Josh Jacobs, right? Josh Jacobs is leading the league in rushing yards. Sorry. And I mean, he didn't look bad.
Yeah,
okay. I'm not saying Josh Jacobs looked bad, but I thought the Rams.
Matt Collins looked really good, and then they went away from him for whatever reason.
I did notice that as well, because Matt Collins has kind of become their like wide receiver too, obviously behind Devontae Adams, and they started doing a lot of jet sweeps, with Matt Collins, kind of doing those like trickery plays. I thought he looked good, and they did kind of go away from him. I think that the Raiders also tried to then go to rush, but again, I think the Rams I mean, the Rams made a lot of good stops. You talked about, one earlier. The Raiders got into a lot of positions where they were in 2nd-and-1s, 3-and-1s, right? And the Rams stopped them. And you had guys like Keir Thomas,
Yeah, he had a
making
huge
big
play
plays,
setting the edge.
okay,
I think,
again,
we were really quick to give Michael Hoyt a lot of credit. He had 2 pressures in this game, so it's not like he didn't do anything. But there's just, I don't know, there's something about like setting the edge as an outside linebacker where if you get 3 sacks, no one's complaining about your ability to set the edge. But Michael Hoyt had a little bit of an issue. And so when Keir Thomas came in and had that stop, that was huge. Because I believe that was a 3rd down stop led to a field goal. So that was huge. Bobby Wagner, man, that 3rd down stop where Carr's diving for the 1st down, if they get that, and then not to mention Greg Gaines. If Greg Gaines doesn't push the guard into, or center, I don't know, one of those guys, he basically pushed the offensive line into Carr. They are going to try to take the lead and go up 20-3 at halftime. If he does not force that, then there's no chance of Ernest Jones picking that off. And if Ernest Jones doesn't pick that off and they give up that touchdown, there's no chance of them winning this game. So that the 20-3 thing would have been ridiculous to come back from. They were down 13-3, even 16-3 would have been a problem at that point. They didn't give up. There was no points in the 3rd quarter. They gave up a field goal in the 4th. But I thought Greg Gaines did his best Aaron Donald impression. He dominated the interior, was there all night, making different plays, things that won't even show up on the stat sheet. But he created a lot of what they were able to do. And I think he would deserve a game ball if anybody is giving them out. I think, he didn't have any like tackles for a loss. He didn't have a sack or anything like that, but it's just his presence in the interior allowed other guys to eat. And, I'm constantly looking at that. He had 2 pressures in this game. He had 6 tackles, 3 solo. I just think he is so important. And going into this game, Alexis, you don't have Aaron Donald, but no one's talking about not having A'Shawn Robinson. This Rams team is perfectly equipped to shut down Josh Jacobs and any running back for that matter up the middle because they have Aaron Donald and A'Shawn Robinson. But when both are out, you need guys like Greg Gaines, you need guys like Marquise Copeland to step up. And I thought they both did a really nice job.
Yeah, I just think all around, we talk about earlier guys on the offense stepping up. I think there was no shortage of guys doing that on the defense as well. Taylor Rapp. Hey, I mean, guys like Taylor Rapp who have been getting a lot of flack this season. I think it's deserved. I don't think it's coming from out of nowhere, but I think also praise for last night was deserved. I think again, stepped up, absolutely stepped up, game-winning interception to seal the win. It doesn't get better than that. I mean, so many moments last night, last-minute touchdowns, last-minute interceptions, Ernest Jones interception, just things like that. You love to see it. I can't complain. Again, I think there's overlying issues maybe with the defense and things like that. I do think going into the offseason still, the secondary needs to be looked at very highly. You and I have talked about that on this show before. But again, it's the Raiders. Okay. I'm not, again, if we had done this against the Chiefs, we might be covering this a little differently, but I think you have to take wins where you can get them. And I think the Rams are in a position at this moment in time where they're playing a long game. They're not playing their games. Like last night, guys, was not like a playoff push game. Again, there's a chance. We talked about it. It very well could happen, but the Rams, realistically, like they know that they're not going into these games and like we have to do everything we can to make the playoffs. I actually think that's probably the furthest thing from Sean McVay's mind right now, as crazy as that sounds. The Rams are playing a long game. They want to see what people can do. They wanted to see what Baker could do. They wanted to try some new stuff. I wish they would have taken it further. Like I said,
they're doing their job
earlier in the podcast.
I mean, they're going out there. Their job is to finish the season strong.
Yeah.
Their job is to win football games. And that's what they're doing. They're trying to win football games. I have no issue with that. They should have beaten Seattle. They should have beaten Tampa. There are a lot of games they're going to look back and wish like, oh man, what it could have been if we did that. But they didn't. Your record is your record. And They're 4-9. I mean, I got to give a shout out to the secondary and just the coverage last night. Taylor Rapp, Alexis, I'm looking at the stats right here on PFF. So 3 targets for Taylor Rapp out of 19. He gave up 1 catch for 4 yards. Average depth of target was 13.7. That gave him a 90.2 coverage grade, something I didn't think that we would ever say. Taylor Rapp's biggest issue has been coverage, but he was fantastic. Troy Hill, only 1 target, didn't give up a catch. His average depth of target, 16 yards downfield. So it was a 16-yard, and he didn't give up the catch. Bobby Wagner gave up 3 targets on 3 catches for only 19 yards. Just very, very, short passing. No big deal there. Jacoby Durant, he gave up a catch on 2 targets for 13 yards. Average depth of target was -3. So really, he just came up and made plays with the bubble screen and whatnot. Nick Scott, he gave up 2 catches on 3 targets for a total of 8 yards. And then Jalen Ramsey, out of the 137 yards, gave up 93 of them. Now, to be fair, he was on Devontae Adams. I will take this all day and every day, because if the secondary can play like this, I don't care that it's the Raiders. I don't care that Waller. I don't care that Renfro were out. You still had Devontae Adams. You still had Josh Jacobs. You still have made plays this year with Mac Hollins, and you've won 3 straight at this point. So what they were able to do I tweeted it during the game, Alexis. This team's 3-9, and Bobby Wagner is balling his ass off. I don't know if you saw the celebration at the end of the game. He went absolutely nuts. You could tell that, man. I feel like, we coined the term, not us specifically, but people started talking about it, win it for Bobby last year. I think we did say it, but I don't know if we coined it. But win it for Bobby Woods, right? Because he tore his ACL. Next year, it's win it for Bobby freaking Wagner. Okay, this guy deserves a ring. He already has a ring. I get that. He deserves one with the Rams. The way he's playing, he plays like his hair's on fire. 14 tackles in this game, Alexis, one of which on 3rd down. Like I mentioned earlier, Derek Carr is diving for the 1st down. He comes over sideline to sideline, makes a huge play. I can't say enough great things about him. He's rated the #1 linebacker according to PFF in the league. He's been everything and then some of what the Rams could have asked for when they signed him. Everyone that was saying he was washed, they're eating their words this year.
We love to see it. Like I said, we'll take wins where we can take them. There certainly have been a few over the course of the season, and there were a lot last night. And for that, we are grateful and optimistic as the season goes on with Baker Mayfield, guys, as our quarterback, which is real. Believe it. I know it feels like we're in a multiverse right now. Baker Mayfield throwing a game-winning touchdown for the Los Angeles Rams, but here we are. And it's awesome. And it was so fun to watch, guys. I'm glad that we got a game like that this season, because it has been obviously tough. It's been tough. It has not been a fun season, but last night was fun. And if we get that the rest of the season, then I can't complain. Honestly, playoffs or not, I just want to see good football from the Rams, and I want to see, meaningful football from the Rams, meaningful reps for young players. I want to look towards the future. If we're not making a playoff run. And I think that that's what we're going to see. Jake, any closing thoughts? The Rams have a bye week.
Well, they do, to an extent.
Not a bye week, sorry. It's a 10-day. Yeah, to an extent. I was trying to figure out a cool way to say that in the moment. They have a long week. That's probably the word I was looking for. They have a long week. Next game is against Jake's looking my mind. The Green Bay on Monday. Yep. That's the game that I wanted to try to go to, and I was originally planning on going to, and now I don't think I can swing it because of my.
By the way, to the shock of nobody, Baker Mayfield is confirmed as the starter the rest of the year, according to Sean McVay. Because I don't think you come out of that and be like, yeah, guys, I think we're gonna have a competition with John Wofford if he's and yes, I did mispronounce his name on purpose Because Sean McVay
and I know that a lot of people.
I don't know why. Alexis, back me up on this.
I don't know either, but guys, by the way, last night, I don't think a lot of people were aware that like on who was the starting quarterback, it was based on if John Wolford was feeling healthy or not. And guys, there was no way that John Wolford was going to let Baker Mayfield start last night, even if it was just for that drive. We all like, it's just a competitive thing. Like he was not going to go out there and be like, you know what, I'm not really feeling it right now. It wasn't going to happen. So that's what happens. Obviously, you know, Baker went in pretty quickly.
He said Wolford,
right?
He said
it wasn't
Stafford,
like
Bryce. He said
a
Sean
huge thing.
McVay. He said Liam Cohen, who we didn't talk about, but he's going over to Kentucky now. He's going back over to be their OC. And he said Zach Robinson, the quarterback's coach, the guy they hired from PFF, is he was one of the guys that helped him get ready. He did not say Thomas Brown. I'm gonna theorize here, Alexis. Next year, Thomas Brown will be a head coach. Remember, I said that. Thomas Brown will be a head coach, and Zach Robinson will be the Rams OC in 2023.
That's kind of how I feel about Zach Robinson. You know, a lot of people asking, you know, when Liam Cohen goes back to Kentucky, I think
it makes sense.
That makes the most sense.
They could lose Raheem Morris too. See. At that point, I don't know who would be their defensive coordinator, but
I think it's a matter.
He deserves.
It's a matter of time with Raheem. I feel like at this point, yeah, I feel like it'll be next season. But if it's not next season by some mysterious force of nature, it'll be the season after that. Because I know
USC could use a defensive coordinator if he wants out. Oh man.
I don't see him going to USC.
No.
But
if he's
a
not
head coach of the NFL team,
and the Rams,
that would make
for whatever
sense
reason,
for me.
wanted to move on, I could see USC. So I don't know.
Yeah. Well, guys,
no, we won't.
We'll be back.
Never again.
We will. That sound okay? No. So you trying to tell me something? I'm just kidding. No, but we will be back. It'll be a little longer than usual because, like we said, the Rams have a nice little break before they come back and play on Monday Night Football against the Packers in Green Bay, which will be a showdown in a very, very cold
absolutely
place.
That excited.
I'm still excited. That's the thing. That's what we have now with this team is like we're going against the Packers in Green Bay and what'll probably be the snow in a very hard game to win. But again, it's where like we don't care. As long as we watch some fun football, like give it to me.
As long as it's fun.
But as long as it's fun. But guys, that'll do it for us. As always, if you like what you hear, please like and subscribe. You can follow us on social media at Downtown Rams. You can follow me on Twitter at the Alexis Kraft. You can follow Jake at JKBogan. And guys, until then, stay safe, take care, and go Rams.
If you haven't joined Prize Picks yet, you need to do it this season. Prize Picks allows you to pick up to 5 player props, and it gives you the option to 10x your winnings. Look at this right now. Tom Brady right now, for a limited time only, is a free square. Because unless he gets hurt, he is going to be getting that 0.5. I'm going to select Tom Brady. I'm going to select Josh Allen going 275.5. Matthew Stafford going 265.5. We'll just throw Lamar Jackson in here, and let's just throw Justin Fields gets more than 191.5. So, what you do here, you put more, or less, if you believe, Lamar Jackson gets less than that. And there you go, 10x your winnings if this pays out. You will actually get paid out even if you only hit 3 of them. You'll get 0.4 times your money back. You'll get 2 times. You'll double your money if you get at least 4 out of 5. Deposit today by using our promo code DTRAMS, and you'll get up to a $100 bonus match.